Michael J. with an update. It's April the 7th, 2025. With an update, well, the markets. Let's look at the market. The markets are friggin' tanking again. Just after the opening. You can obviously see where we're at with the stock markets. Not a good place to be, folks. But this is where we are due to the effects of a guy called Agent Orange. The Putin? The Putin puppet. The Putin. He's putting all right. Get him down to one of his golf courses, or get him away from his golf course on this past weekend, where he's rubbing shoulders with people from Saudi Arabia for an event sponsored by Saudi Arabia for a golf tournament at one of Trump's golf courses. Yikes. I didn't know he had Saudi Arabian brothers and created a worldwide network of nepotism. But this is where we're at. People don't get it. We're going to update today what's going on in the Canadian political landscape between Pierre Poilievre, Jagmeet Singh, and Mark Carney. As the election process is nearing to the day of casting ballots, who are you going to vote for? Well, I know who I'm going to cast my ballot for, without a doubt. But what we're going to do here right now is just go into a little more, let's look at the situation from a different perspective. And you'll say, what, perspective? Yeah, because believe it or not, perspective creates beliefs. And from those beliefs, you take actions. And those actions create experiences. And those experiences redefine your perspective, if you're paying attention, that is. A lot of people aren't paying attention. They don't know what they had for breakfast. They don't pay attention to anything. And I'll give you an example. Just this morning, I was in the lobby of an apartment building talking to a guy from the East Coast. And we're talking about cost of living, affordability. And regaling, we brought up the fact that one-time chicken wings could not be given away. Lobster was so cheap you could have it for breakfast and nobody would think twice about it. But those days are long gone. And we have an affordability issue, but the thing is, everybody is blaming it on the liberals. And that's false. Affordability issue is a problem shared by all parties, whether it be conservative, liberal, or NDP. Full stop. Place blame on one party over another party over another party is false, disingenuous, and helps no one in getting out of the situation and creating a more positive, uplifting experience for all citizens. Did he say all citizens? Yes, I said all citizens for the country called Canada. It's a sovereign nation. Yikes. Sovereign? Yep. Now, you have to respect the fact that Mark Carney spoke to Monsieur Donald J. Trump, and Trump took him about 180. Took him 180 in the way he dealt with Canada. And then you're going to have some pundit say he sold out. He sold out to the Americans. Well, if anybody sold out, Daniel Smith was the last Canadian of any political influence that went down to Mar-a-Lago, met with this guy Kevin O'Leary, which, you know, Kevin O'Leary is not my top 100 of... Actually, I don't have a Christmas card list with anybody on it. But if I'm going to watch a show, I'm not going to watch any show with Kevin O'Leary. I'd rather just sit on the couch and do nothing. Just saying, folks. So Daniel Smith went down to Mar-a-Lago. Breitbart interview. She expressed this verbally, so it is on the record. And she said to Trump, et al., down in Mar-a-Lago, Donald J. Trump et al. Means everybody that was there. Please put those transfer or tariffs, please put your tariffs on hold because the liberals are getting undue influence because of your tariffs. And if you put them on hold, that'll allow us the chance to get Pierre Poilievre elected and put somebody at the table that is more in sync with your way of thinking so we can create new agreements with the United States, Mr. Trump. This is what Danielle Smith did. And who's one of the advisors to Danielle Smith? A guy by the name of Stephen Harper. And Stephen Harper had a former government that ran for about 10 years. And after that collapse of that government, a guy by the name of Justin Trudeau became prime minister for the first time. But during that tenure prior to Justin Trudeau, there was a guy by the name of Stephen Harper. He had a cabinet minister named Pierre Poilievre. And I'm going to reiterate the fact that the border security was neutered under the Harper government. Many other things were neutered, like the Stats Canada, which is an important thing that is public for every Canadian to be able to get actual factual information to ingest in order to actually be able to understand how government, the progress of government in relation to the lives of the average Canadian, the cause and effect in real numbers. So the other fact of the matter that you got to remember is that there was a friggin' recession. 7 months of negative growth that pushed that Harper government into an election. And November of 2015, Justin Trudeau was elected as Prime Minister of Canada. Didn't start his new tenure up until 2016 because, Christmas takes time to get your cabinet together. New cabinet, totally different party. But here's the other thing. Back in 2022, he had this going on. Editorial. Trudeau's legacy is a decade of deficits. So it's 2025, and it's April. Are you kidding me? Actually, April the 7th, 2025. So for 3 years, we've had right-wing media and Pierre Poilievre. Well, actually, back then, might have been Aaron O'Toole, Andrew Scheer, and then Pierre Poilievre. But back in April 7th, 2022, and this has been going on for it's April 7th, 2025 now, Trudeau's legacy is a decade of deficits. He hadn't even been a prime minister for 10 years. But since December 2019, when it became public that we had a worldwide pandemic that crippled the world, crippled world economies, GDP for every economy around the world pretty much became zero. Doesn't happen often, folks, but it happens. And it creates a challenge to fix that. So there you go. Trudeau's legacy is a decade. Holy crap. Yeah, I did say that, didn't I? And there you go. Now, what's the point of that? Well, the point is, recently, in Penticton, is it Penticton? Yeah, Penticton. Good old Pierre Poilievre was saying the same thing again. Lost decade under the Liberals. Okay, I'm going to tell you something. Let's be honest here. It's a lost decade for Liberals, Conservatives, and NDP, because all of them have brought us to where we are now today, April 7, 2025. Let's be honest with one another. No secret. So 3,000 supporters in Pennington. And then again, the Toronto Sun. Yeah, you say again, the Toronto Sun? Yeah, Toronto Sun again. What year is this? Oh, no. I pulled this article out from 2022. So a decade of deficits. Unbelievable. And that's where we're at. Nothing better. Nothing constructive. So now we've got a lot of mainstream media. Like, let's be honest here. Here's the Toronto Sun. This was today, 10 minutes ago, where they did a story. Let's look at this. Let's look at this while I've got your attention.
Last week was our first playoff game.
This is a commercial. Sorry, now it's 2 hours ago. So what's the byline here? What's the byline? Let's look at this more closely. Okay, so here's the byline. In the description, things are happening in the election campaigns behind the headlines that may reveal a different version of what's showing up in the polls. What's this thing about polls? Polls can change, but man, oh man, these polls are important to conservatives, and these crowd size is important to conservatives just like they were to Donald Trump. I call Pierre Poilievre a mini-Trump. He's not as bad as that nationalist fascist Trump, but he's from that same vein of thinking. And that's represented in the way that Daniel Smith has acted, has verbally stated on the record as well. What's surprising is a guy like Jason Kenney has gone on the record actually saying that Alberta should be using oil as a leverage against the tariffs. Just saying, there is a redeeming factor there. So are we here taking care of Canada? Are we in this to take care of Canada? Or is this still a self-interest game motivated strictly by ideology and not for the best interest of the Canadian citizen? So, Stuart Thompson and Tasha Karidan, the team behind Political Hack, Post Media's Politics Insider newsletter. Here's the funny thing about Post Media. Post Media is owned by an American hedge fund that has conservative leanings. One time had a rag that paid hush money to Playboy personalities, various other personalities, in order to suppress information against Donald Trump so that he could be elected. And this American hedge fund, for pretty much a decade now, has been trying to influence the Canadian political landscape to think in the same way as the Americans do. And you say, what? How's that possible? Well, IDU.org, yes, IDU.org, which is chaired by a guy by the name of Stephen Harper, which also has a treasurer that works for the Republican Party of the United States, and as well, where's my thing on that? Let me grab my thing on that. As well, there was a particular leader. Who was that leader? There we go. Liz Truss. Liz Truss, the gal that was in power for a phenomenal 49 days as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, has been quoted by conservatives as an authority on how we should be judging Mark Carney. So why was her tenure as a Prime Minister of the United Kingdom as long as 49 days, like a month and a half? Well, her financial policies were so ridiculous to the electorate, to everybody in the United Kingdom, she had to resign. So if you're relying on her as a de facto standard, holy crap. Yes, if you're relying on her as a de facto standard to judge Mark Carney, you're mistaken. This is all slanted. We need some actual, can we actually get some information that's factual from these conservative podcasters instead of just ideology slants to try to sway your opinion and not do necessarily what's best for the Canadian country, for the country itself? Holy moly. Here we got Moose on the Loose, one of the worst abusers of the privilege of being able to represent conservative ideology. As well, the Toronto Sun, which I've represented and explained to you. As well, again, Moose on the Loose. As well, Jasmine Lane. As well, Wyatt Claypool. It's a vicious cast of characters. I'm sure they're great people on a social setting in the cocktail circuit, within the conservative nation, within the conservative bubble. But we're not taking into account conservatism right now. We're talking about the needs of the Canadian people during a crisis with Donald Trump and these tariffs that's crashing the world economy, and at the same time balancing affordability for the Canadian people. And from the perspective that the affordability issue is equally shared by the Liberals, Conservatives, and NDP. Full stop. I don't care how you want to present it, full stop. As well, Trudeau's been in government in control of the reins for 10 years. Well, you got to understand the Conservatives, under Stephen Harper, passed a government to him that was in recession. Within 3 years, we had a pandemic that the world has not seen in over 100 years that crashed global economies to pretty much net zero output. So I'm going back to Liberals, Conservatives, NDP all equally take responsibility for the affordability issue. Full stop. So now we're going to look at Moose on the Loose, and we're going to observe what he has stated here. It's now 17 hours since he made this post. Take it away, Moose.
Up. That's how we're going to bring hope to this country. That's how we're going to bring real change.
This Dog and Pony show is going about as we're expecting. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we have the Liberals dropping more candidates because they criticized Justin Trudeau for one of them and a Hamas supporter for the other one. Meanwhile, Conservative candidates like Aaron Gunn are getting attacked because they told the truth. We got Pierre Poilievre coming out once again.
What? Already? We're this far into it, and we've got to fact check this guy, which seems to be a little bit ridiculous, don't you think? But this is what we got to do. So one of the candidates, and this is going to come up again here. Who is this? Who is this candidate? Well, this is a Liberal candidate. And we're bringing up the Liberal candidate because that's what we need to discuss, because we got to provide parity. You say parity? Yeah, Parity. Okay. So now this is the Prince George Citizen. Can you believe this? Prince George Citizen. Yikes. Where's my friggin' mouse? April 4, 2025. Liberals say no to Chris Beach as candidate. I regret to let everyone know I just received an email from the Liberal Party telling me I've been rejected as a candidate without any explanation. And this is in a Facebook post as at April the 4th, 2025. And so he further explains, this is the candidate, Chris Beach, former mayor of Burns Lake. He explains, and this is his side of the story, the only plausible explanation that I can come up with at this point is that I was too critical of former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and David Eby, which is the Premier of BC. Originally, Mr. Beach told media and supporters he had been acclaimed before holding a campaign launch. He had a campaign launch Friday, March 28th, even though he had not been confirmed as a candidate. And the Citizen here did an article that he had not been formally named the party's candidate, yet at the same time, he went ahead with a campaign launch. Now, you got David Moose on the Loose saying, oh my God, the Liberals, they're terrible, you can't do stuff like that. And nothing unusual. This happens to the Tories also, because surprisingly enough, here's the other article of March 28th where it was confirmed the candidacy was not official. So, let's be honest here. As well, the Conservatives have had to dump candidates as well. There's nothing new here. It's a nothing burger, but this guy is slanting his narrative to convince you otherwise. It's happening with both parties.
Again, with more new policies, he seems to be the only one bringing forward policies to save Canada. Mark Carney just waits 4 or 5 days, then rips off one of Pierre's policies. That's not leadership.
And this is disinformation, misinformation, because David, that's just with a capital B, bullshit. Just calling it the way I see it.
Mark, Let's jump into this. We got this story popping off here. Carney Liberals have suddenly dropped Chris Beach from their candidate for Caribou Prince George. Beach says he was fired because he was too critical of former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Too critical of Trudeau, you're out the door. They can get rid of people for whatever reason they want. That's not a good reason, though. See, it's being carried here in the local report. We've got the post here right from Chris Beach himself. He says, I regret to let everyone know that I received an email from the Liberal Party telling me I've been rejected as candidate without any explanation. After being told repeatedly he was the one and only candidate for this region, he was kicked out. He says the only plausible reason he can come up with is he was too critical of former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
So, as I explained earlier, let's be honest. He doesn't know for sure he's the only candidate. Maybe he was the only candidate. And therefore, we got to greatly appreciate the fact that the Liberal Party, even though he's the only candidate, if they found his ideology was not tailored enough to be progressively good for the Canadian people, that they'd rather go without a candidate, period. You can spin this any which way there, David. You know, I'm not conservative, I'm not liberal, I'm not NDP. I'm just for what's best for Canadians. And it may not align with your way of thinking.
There's a lot of people being ejected.
Yikes.
The Conservatives don't play games. There's a lot of bad stuff found out of a candidate. They just eject them right away. We've got the Liberals here. They ejected another one. Former Alberta NDP MLA Rod Loyola has announced his intention to run as an independent candidate for Parliament in Edmonton Southeast against the Edmonton mayor. This decision comes after federal Liberals dropped him from the Edmonton Gateway race due to controversial resurfaced 2009 video. In the video, Loyola, while at an anti-NATO rally, is seen praising Hamas and Hezbollah, both which are yeah, they're bad groups in Canada. Liberals really just attract the best of the best, don't they? Hamas loyalist as a candidate, he can't be serious. That's the kind of people we have in our government. Says it was during a hip-hop segment introduction at an anti-war rally, wrote Loyola in a statement. I'm announcing that this is not the end of our campaign. I'll continue to run as an independent. So this Hamas loyalist is...
Let's be clear, David. I'm not going to put it out here out front, but it is known the Conservative candidates have said just as disingenuous statements as you are relating to us here, but on behalf of Conservative candidates towards Liberals. This is a two-way street. Not every street's just a one-way street, David. Moose on the loose. Moose are dangerous. Beautiful beasts, but dangerous.
Now running against Edmonton Sohi. Sohi himself is corrupt too. Like, Liberals have the worst of the worst. As it says here, Sohi's tenure as mayor has been marked with several controversies, including property tax hikes, 6.1% just in 2025, 6.8% for 2026, $100 million bike lanes. Public opinion poll shows 20.
Well, now you're getting into municipal politics. The affordability issue is an issue that's equally taken by all parties. Not one party has been required to or should be able to or should have to take responsibility for the affordability issue. It is an issue. It's going to require its own tools to straighten out, and it's not going to happen overnight either.
25% of people want him out. 60% want a new mayor. Liberals bring in the best of the best, don't they? Jumping back over to coastal BC, Aaron Gunn's...
Hold on a sec.
60% want a new mayor. Liberals bring in the best of the best.
Okay, so here we go. This is Juno News. Juno News, another conservative rag that does nothing but provide conservative right-wing leaning ideology for the masses. Just saying, you should be aware of that. Conservative. You got to make a decision and get yourself educated on the real facts and what affects people.
Jumping back over to coastal BC, Aaron Gunn's still under attack. This is ridiculous. What we're seeing here, this is posted in Campbell River Rant and Rave Facebook group. For immediate release, the undersigned are elected and former elected officials call on the Conservative Party to have Aaron Gunn basically withdraw his candidacy. This is not democracy, people. You can't get a bunch of Liberal and NDP losers to sign a letter and try to strong-arm a Conservative to not run. This is deplorable. If anyone wants to...
Deplorable is a good use of the word contextually, but to call people losers is really not warranted nor advance your cause.
to take a screenshot of there and send these people a message telling them what they think of this. I can't stop you. I'm not telling you to do that, but you're within.
Yeah, you're telling people to do it because you're creating the suggestion. That's just like CTV that put an article out with a doctored video that was not in favor of Pierre Poilievre, which should never have happened, but it did happen. So what does Pierre Poilievre do? It's typical. I'm the prosecutor, and he goes after Bell Media, so that CTV lets go of fact checkers because they're worried that the fact checker might go against Pierre Poilievre, and they're worried about offending him because he's verbally attacked their business, which has affected them. Same way that this gentleman here has just suggested. I'm not suggesting, but if you do, right.
In your rights to do that. I think the laughing emoji here is appropriate. This is not democracy. You know what the net result of that was? Having the fake Graves claim blow up in the media. 33 churches were burned. 85 Canadian churches were vandalized.
Oh, so here's the other thing. So as I explained at the beginning of the video, I was in a lobby of an apartment building talking to these East Coaster. He's retired. And then along comes a gentleman. I talk to everybody and anybody. And I bring up a topic. Then all of a sudden this guy is ranting and ragging on, forget who it was. But anyways, he's toasting a champagne glass or a flute to Orban of Hungary. And I just said to him, I just called him right out, and I said, Orban is just a friggin' fascist pig. And he didn't like that. Oh boy, he did not like that. And then I brought up Donald Trump. Well, anyways, within less than 5 minutes, because this guy brought up that he's a nationalist, so I kept pressing, and then Orban came up. So you gotta make sure that you understand the nationalist thing came up. I'm a nationalist party guy. And then he brought up Orban. I said Orban's nothing but a fascist pig. He didn't like that. It caused him to push back. So when he pushed back, I called him out. And the East Coaster was my witness. The fact this guy finally admitted, within less than 5 minutes, that he's a Nazi sympathizer, white supremacist, and he lives here in Canada. And he's voting Conservative. So I'm putting that out there also. You can vote any way you want, buddy. You have the free will to make those decisions. Just get educated on what the issues are. But I do have an issue with nationalists, fascists, and Nazi sympathizers. I don't believe in pain and suffering. I believe everyone has a right to be safe and secure, have a roof over their head, and be able to put food on the table. Let's be clear. Let's go back to David here.
If anything, it should be an outrage, an attack on Christianity in Canada. And I'm not religious. I'm not Christian. I got no horse in this race. I just call it as it is. There was nothing found. It was disturbed soil. It could have been a garden, not one skeleton. This letter even says that he said stop.
So you got no horse in there. Why are you bringing up this crap? It serves no one, David. But you're doing this to provide division, to try to slant things to get people to vote Conservative.
Lying to people. These comments are incompatible with a Canada where reconciliation is a priority. It doesn't matter. Lying is lying. There were no bodies found. There's no graves.
I'm going to tell you a little history. A guy by the name of MacDonald, our famous prime minister that everybody reveres. He created the problem with these housing and the settlements and putting these kids in these schools. It was a travesty. And he did it without compunction. Also, you got Pierre Poilievre having an advertisement. National news or national coverage. Paid for by the Conservative Party. They got the biggest budget, over $8.2 million. For the statue of John A. MacDonald, the best prime minister. Well, CP Rail. He said, well, he brought together CP Rail. But do you also realize that when Prime Minister MacDonald had a fire in his office, they uncovered documents that had shown that he took payoffs to award the contract for CP Rail, and so ended up He ended up being turfed as prime minister, going to America for 5 years. You don't know any history either, do you, David? You don't understand the Empire Loyalist Union in the United States and how it relates to the conservative parties here in Canada, going back to the day of George Washington and the House of Carlisle. You do not understand history, period. So you're outside your depth here, sir. Bringing up about this native schools and the birth sites having no merit whatsoever. It's just a false narrative. We shouldn't be going there.
Ground penetrating radar found disturbed soil. There's not one skeleton found. These people are ridiculous for signing this. Next up, we got Pierre Poilievre coming out with another plan to help Canada. This one here is to cut bureaucratic red tape by 25% to lower prices and get homes built faster.
That's why today I'm announcing a common sense conservative government will axe.
And I'm going to butt in here again. That's not going to help the people. We've got an affordability crisis. This is just a way to look good but not really help people. The one that's going to help the people is the one that's come up with the situation whereas the government itself is going to invest in building affordable houses throughout the country. There's only one guy that's done that. Finally, Mark Carney revised his housing plan, and this is where we got to go back to the government actually building homes.
The number of regulatory requirements by 25% within 2 years, and we'll ensure taxpayers are saving with a 25% reduction in the administrative burden that costs them by 2027. To reverse the Liberals' red tape, we will apply a 2-for-1 rule moving forward. That means for every new regulatory requirement, the government must get rid of 2 others. This rule will also...
Right. What'd that do for the Americans during the financial crisis of 2008? Deregulation, and deregulation caused the crash of the world's economy. Now, we had a recession here in Canada, even though a guy by the name of Mark Carney, that was the bank governor, said we didn't. We did. But we recovered better than anyone in the G7 during that period of time, and were very lightly affected by the recession compared to our neighbors in the United States.
And to make sure it actually happens, we're going to require by law that the Auditor General verify that the 2-for-1 rule is being followed.
This is just friggin' nonsense. Auditor General does their job very, very well. This 2-for-1 rule is not going to really help anything. We have to be careful how we apply regulation. Always has to be. We may be able to, during this time with the tariff or the transfers and the dismantling of interprovincial regulations, speeding up the process of approving projects, but not to the point that we create a catastrophe by not being responsible. And this is what's important. This is just show, smoke and mirrors. This is gloss. This isn't going to do much for anybody. It's not going to put more money in your pocket, just like getting rid of that carbon tax. Going to help a little bit, but for what you gained and the cost to the environment and local environment is worse than what you gained by it. And it just made no sense. But nonetheless, it was made into a major topic, and the politicians had to cave.
Listen, more and more of our jobs are leaving south because it's impossible to get anything done here in Canada. Red tape ensnares our entrepreneurs and our industry.
This is so...
They say that in the United States also. That's why friggin' Trump is gutting all the institutions of government. He referred to it as the deep state. And you're trying to do it here in Canada. You say there's so much fraud. You got a lot of good civil servants that are working for the people. It's not an easy job. Let's be righteous and frank in how we deal with government employees.
Smart. There's already actually a rule that he talks about earlier in the video that's in law, but the Liberals got around it.
They reduced the number of regulatory titles. In essence, they reduce the number of books while increasing the size of each volume. This is how you get fewer, quote, consolidated regulations while adding hundreds of pages of new rules.
Leave it to liberals to screw us over any which way they can. You're the best, Pierre. Nobody can deny how dialed in you are. Yeah, he's on it. Every single thing here is going to be better for Canada. We've got quite a powerful clip here of Pierre Poilievre. So he came out with a video talking about he's going to get rid of the street candy, deal with that problem. I'm not going to play the video because it's too many words for me to bleep out. So you can find it on Pierre's page, but we have Jasmine posting this one here. She's saying not Pierre Poilievre.
Jasmine Lane is Juno News. Juno News, Moose on the Loose here, Wyatt Claypool, and Elevate podcast, all conservative slanted, and they just slant it in that direction without compunction, and all they do is sling mud towards the other parties. Simple as that.
Bringing me to tears with today's announcement. Everyone knows that I lost someone to this S word here, or overdose is voting conservative.
And in fact, I would say they have a superpower now, a superpower that almost no one has, because they've been to the bottom of the valley and they've climbed up to the mountaintop. And they now can inspire others to do the same. Every single person, every single one of you who's recovered, do not look at that past as a weakness. Look at it as a superpower.
You're not as eloquent as Reverend Graham is. Holy moly. Addiction, you gotta understand something. Conservatives really do not normally, traditionally, want to fund treatment centers for addiction. If you look on the West Coast in BC, you've had opium issues going back 100 years ago. So this here's another nothing burger here. It's an issue we got to deal with, but I'm going to tell you right now, the crystal meth issue in Alberta has been going on for over 50 years. Right in Alberta. What have the Conservatives done to fix that?
I need all of you. I need you to take your experience and go and lift someone else up. Grab that next person who's on a street corner, pull them up, and take them to care and break their addiction, to turn their lives around.
And that's why nobody needs to be homeless. You look down on the people that are that need social assistance. You cut benefits to people that need social assistance, whether it's circumstantially by their own doing or other factors at play. You don't lift people up. It's all about the dollars. Private health, you've taken what Tommy Douglas did with our health care, which is the best thing Canadians have, and try to privatize it. You're doing it in Alberta. Daniel Smith has done it on the side without anybody knowing. Doug Ford has been doing it in Ontario.
That's how we're going to bring hope to this country. That's how we're going to bring real change. Thank you very much.
This is my prime minister right here. Mark Carney is not inspiring anyone like Pierre is. While I've never gone down the route of the street candy, I was definitely in the bottom of the barrel before I started coming on here and running my mouth and having all of you lift me up. I'm grateful for all the support. I should acknowledge all the huge donations people keep dropping, super chats, the super thanks. I'm so busy producing videos, I go back and check after a week or so, and there's just $100 donations, $50 donations. It's absolutely insane. So I'm trying my best here to push it all out, drop the straight facts, real news, what's honest, what's actually going on in Canada to help get our country back. I'm incredibly grateful for all of you lifting me up to be that voice for all of you, the voice that the mainstream media has taken away from us. I know Jasmine has a similar story. We're going to bring Canada back. Most important.
So you're tugging at the heartstrings of the electorate, and that gives you a right to influence in a way that is without bias? Come on, let's be honest here. Everybody's got a story, but we've got to do what's best for the Canadian people, not an ideology that you think is best for the people. You're saying, whoa, who am I to speak? Who am I to speak? I'll explain something to you. I got targeted because of the developer lawyer was laundering money for Boris Yeltsin, who brought Donald Trump into the game of laundering this money. So they're laundering money for the Russians that put Putin into power. laundering money for the Colombian cartel, Mexican cartel, and it was so bad it created the Panama Papers, Paradise Papers, and Pandora Papers, just from laundering money. So I know a little bit about this stuff. As a matter of fact, I got targeted because of what I knew. It cost me $40 to $50 million in lost revenue. I'm still alive, but I'm not tugging on anybody's heartstrings. You know how hard it is? You can have an addiction, you can do things, and then get a GoFundMe and people will give you money. You can have a situation like I am where you're targeted by organized crime, and the guy that ends up being the friggin' president for 2 terms in the United States, and you can't, the best I could get was $10, one time, over the course of 30 years. So go figure. So don't friggin' give me this bullshit. It's honest. And I appreciate the fact you turned your life around, but don't use that as a tool to misrepresent and to be able to influence people in an untoward manner. That's all.
Important political announcement. Yeah, this is huge. This is big. Let's vote conservative and fix this country. Stop the street candy. It takes too many lives. So in Pierre's video, he announces, I believe it was 50,000 people. It's more people have perished from the street candy, the Liberal NDP program they rolled out, which funnels across Canada. Its origin is in BC, where they have the safe supply, not safe.
Meanwhile, you just did a video where you're helping people with addictions, and then you're knocking the Liberals and NDP for helping people with addictions. You know, you want it both ways, David, and you're not giving it both ways. And that's the reality that I'm pointing out here.
More people have perished from that than WW2. It's absolutely crazy. And my grandfather fought in WW2. He was actually captured because he was half Russian, half German. He escaped. He's running from guys with pew-pews, big, that kind of thing on the beach. Was able to escape, move to Canada, move to Manitoba, start a farm. Our grandfathers literally fought for the freedom in our country, and now the Liberals are trying to take that away. It is absolutely pivotal that we win this election. Pierre fights for recovery, not handouts.
That's a nice story. It can be shared by a lot of people in Canada, but it's disingenuous to present it in such a way that the Liberals are trying to take Canada away from you, and the Conservatives are the only savior of this country. That is wrong. We got a tariff issue with the United States of America, where the president is compromised, influenced unduly by the Russians. He's a predator. He's not looking out for anybody's best interest other than his own and make himself look good at the expense of everybody and anybody and every country around the world right now, except for the ones where there's autocrats that he looks up to.
Vote conservative. I teared up too. I thought Pierre was about to also. That was a powerful speech he gave, totally from the heart. Next up, we got Brandon posting this one. It says, let me get this straight. At the time that Mark Carney was advising the government to raise taxes on Canadians, Justin Trudeau's advisor, he was dodging taxes in Bermuda. So as he says here, this begs the question, is he refusing to disclose his assets and holdings because he still benefits from tax havens to this day? That is the question. Is Mark Carney benefiting from not telling us what assets he has?
There's an ethics commission. Any holdings he has goes into a blind trust, which is known, not to the general public, and it's no real business of the general public, but it's at arm's length away. So this is, again, a nothing burger. Just keep raising fear and creating these situations, like these theories that have no substance. Oh, conspiracy theories. A lot more going on in the world than what you realize, sir.
The issue of corporate tax evasion continues to follow Liberal leader Mark Carney on his campaign. Today,
it's not an issue, and it's not a moral or ethic issue, because if it was a moral or ethic issue, it'd be because somebody did something that was not right and was wrong. In the definition of how we judge these things, is it lawful or unlawful? Nothing was done unlawfully. Everything was done within the law, whether it be the criminal, civil, or tax laws. Full stop.
The NDP is alleging that Brookfield Asset Management avoided paying billions in taxes during the time Carney sat on the board. CTV's Judy Trin is traveling with the Liberals. What's his response to the allegations, Judy?
Heather, Mark Carney continues to sidestep questions about his past job at Brookfield Asset Management and the use of tax havens. While in Montreal, Mark Carney was asked if it was ethical for Brookfield Asset Management, where he sat on the board, to use tax havens.
He answered it appropriately. Everything was done legally, to the law, and whether ethics are more, you're asking him to make an ethical assumption when he was just a chair of a corporation where the officers underneath the chair make all the decisions of the corporation. He just filled his capacity as a fiduciary. Nothing more, nothing less. He answered the question. He did not sidestep it, but he did not say it was ethically wrong or morally wrong, because it was not ethically wrong or morally wrong, because if there was a wrong, then there would have been a charge for it. When you breach the corporate tax laws, you pay penalties. Didn't happen. You can twist this story many different ways you want. I know it's an election campaign, but you know nothing about the corporation, the responsibility of the officers and chairs of corporations. And public companies is different from government, different from private corporations, and different from a household budget. Totally different.
First off, I'm no longer at Brookfield. Secondly, this follows...
So first up, this notion of I'm not at Brookfield anymore. So it doesn't matter. It's in the past. So anyone who's committed a crime, how about SDTC documents, $400 million?
There's no crime. David, it's false. There's no crime. And you might want to bring up SNC Lavalin as being a liberal situation. SNC Lavalin has probably created many crimes of payola. But you got to understand, SNC Lavalin was made one of the major benefactors of the 407 purchase under a conservative by the name of Mike Harris. Gave $3 billion to the Ontario government to balance their budget and pocket $30 billion upon that project called the 407 thereafter. Let's put things in perspective, sir.
Stolen from taxpayers. It's in the past. Doesn't matter. Bank robber robbed a bank yesterday. It's in the past. Doesn't matter. This doesn't hold water, Mark.
Yeah, well, your analogies don't hold water either. Your metaphors, David, do not hold water either. Yikes. What are we going to do? That's what I said.
Mark, if someone has done things that are illegal, if someone has done things that are unethical, like dodging taxes, tax evasion, it needs to be brought up. It still can bite you in the butt. It is still relevant.
No. Because the monies, as explained, were brought back onshore, and they paid taxes on that, and the proceeds benefited teachers and other people in pension funds here in Canada.
Resigned from Brookfield's board in mid-January to run as leader of the Liberals. Before that, he was head of impact investment for Brookfield, managing 2 green funds worth about $25 billion. CTV News reported that several entities of Brookfield's core business was registered to an address in Bermuda that also houses a bike shop.
Also, a guy by the name of Bud McDougall. Who was Bud McDougall? Argus Corporation used Bermuda. He had a summer home in Bermuda. He stayed in Bermuda. Guy by the name of Conrad Black, where his brother Montague Black took over Argus Corporation, raped the Dominion Pension Fund for $60 million. Conrad Black is still doing opinion articles representing conservatives for the National Post in favor of guys like Pierre Poilievre and any conservative movement that exists in the world. So don't talk to us about transgressions when you do not know what you speak of. Back to the shoe.
So something to note about that, it's on the 5th floor and people are confused about it, but if you look back here, there is 5 floors. You can only see 3 from the front. So 3, 4th floor, 5th floor. So it's back here.
This is a bike shop.
Mark Carney, while he was the chair of this company, 4 out of 5 of their businesses were located above a bicycle shop in a small office in Bermuda. It almost sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud.
Referring to public documents, Singh says Brookfield, during Carney's tenure, avoided paying more than $5 billion in taxes.
$5.3 billion. What does that mean? Well, that's 50,000 nurses that could have been hired. That's streetcars. That's.
Can we verify it was $5.3 billion? Can we verify that no taxes were paid out when the funds came back and paid out pensioners? No.
Buses. That's public infrastructure. Not only for the federal government, also for the provincial government.
For years, the Liberal Party has promised to make corporations pay their fair share. Carney said his global banking experience will help him find solutions.
I understand how the world works and the structure works.
But when asked,
That's the dangerous part. He knows how the world works because he is a smart banker. He will make it work for himself, not for Canada.
No. David, he's not Donald Trump. There is a difference. You don't get it. As a matter of fact, most don't get it. The way economics is done, like Pierre Poilievre, and he's mentioned it in the Jordan B. Peterson interview, aspires to Friedman economics, which are, we've got to, if we want to change the affordability factor, we've got to change the way we look at things. We've got to take a more modern macroeconomic theory approach and not rely on the stuff that that we've applied in the past, because what we applied in the past has created the problem we have right now. And if we want to fix the problem by using what we used to create the problem in the past and bring it forward, it makes no sense. Do you understand what I'm stating? Pierre Poilievre has stated when he's going to university, his thesis, as well as his tenure under Stephen Harper, is what he's going to bring forward into the present. It's not going to work. It's not going to fix anything. We've got to change a lot more than what Mark Carney has stated so far, but we got to get a handle on what's going on now, start getting some home building done, and dealing with the pending economic crash, because it's going to happen.
Canada. That's why he won't disclose his financial assets. Otherwise, he would. Pierre Poilievre came out and disclosed all of his financial assets and sold them all. This should be throwing out mass.
So, give me a friggin' break. Poilievre has a major holding in Vanguard, and Vanguard has a major holding of Brookfield. So give me a friggin' break. You do not know what you're talking about, David. It's just silly. Nothing to do with you as a person. But let's just deal with facts and what's really going on.
Of red flags to every Canadian in Canada. I don't know why our population is so brainwashed. The guy's a banker working for himself.
They're brainwashed because you are brainwashing people. The conservative media, which is the majority of media in Canada and the U.S., is brainwashing people with conservative ideology. That is factual. And we've seen it, and you say, well, that's not possible. You've seen it in the United States. Free speech has gone the way of the dodo bird in the United States. A lot of it's been lost here in Canada. And most of all you're getting is brainwashing from conservative ideology. Post Media Network, strictly conservative. It's an American hedge fund pushing conservative ideology. People like Juno News, Moose on the Loose, Claypool, Elevate Podcast, pushing conservative ideology. And it's dangerous. And I'm not going to go any further. Now that I've stated that, I'm not going any further into this friggin' video. Let's look at this other one here. Moose on the loose.
A heartfelt moment indeed. Unfortunately, today was a day of rage in downtown Toronto. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today, we've got Liz Truss, the former British Prime Minister, ripping Mark Carney a new one. We've got some touching moments at a Pierre Poilievre rally, pulling big numbers once again in Penticton. We've also got Justin Trudeau, Captain Schmuck. Remember him? He's back in the news. Let's jump into this. First up, we got Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful. Welcome to the show, Mr. Wonderful. Posting this clip here of Liz Truss. Kevin O'Leary doing his best here to try to help the Conservatives.
I think it is extraordinary that Mark Carney has become the Prime Minister of Canada. He did a terrible job in Britain of the governorship of the Bank of England. He created a lot of the problems that blew up on my watch and that I got blamed for.
Oh, jeez. Your policies blew you up, blew your career up there, Liz. You're a 49-day Prime Minister and you've got the nerve to actually speak about put the blame on somebody else? Give me a friggin' break. I already brought this up, the fact that you have no credibility whatsoever. Kevin O'Leary has no credibility whatsoever, other than being a media personality like Trump was on The Apprentice, Shark Tank. Like, come on, these guys would sell you out for a friggin' nickel. Just so I could put $1 in their wallet. Gotta have those folding bills.
Were actually created by him. He backed Labour in the election and Rachel Reeves's policies, which are leading the country to bankruptcy. So why on earth the Liberal Party of Canada has selected this man, I have no...
Well, guess what? The UK actually exited from Brexit, and they're standing still. Can you believe it? They're standing still. But we got a problem with this guy down in the United States called Donald J. Trump. Let's see. This is just a nothing burger. I've already brought this up beforehand. Let's see what we got here.
And Canadians are completely unaware of Mark Carney's work history, but they think he has a good resume. People don't look into the guy. They're like, oh, banker. I'm not smart enough to be a banker. He must be good. That's, I think, what the average Canadian who is going to vote for Mark Carney, at least are thinking of voting for Mark Carney right now, thinks. Moving.
Most bankers are very fixed in their way of looking at things. The one thing about Mark Carney is he is adaptable and will change his way of thinking. And this is something you'd only know about if you're actually observing what's going on, instead of just taking other people's word for it and people that have no merit whatsoever as a de facto standard, which is not the route to take, my dear sir.
Moving on, we've got Justin Trudeau, spotted in Montreal, so he's here to campaign for Papineau. No longer his riding, but he's helping out. There he is.
Yeah,
Captain
boots on the
Schmuck is
ground.
always good for a selfie. That's really all he was ever good for. Here he is.
Yikes, Captain Schmuck. Come on. I called you sir. Pierre Poilievre, I call Pierre Poilievre Pierre Poilievre.
Again, so door knocking. This is the new candidate here. She released a video of their door knocking today.
Well, I brought him for you.
Pour Papineau et pour le Canada. Marjorie is someone who will always step up for her community, step up.
You got to wonder, Captain Schmuck is there. There's something in it for him, too. He's not going to show up to just help. He doesn't care about anyone but himself.
Yeah, well, he is helping out. Whatever you want to say.
They dig up some tweets and then they twist some words. And Aaron Gunn has already come out and clarified that he acknowledges the past with First Nations, but his tweet was simply stating there was nothing found. There was no little ones found. When there's no graves, there's none of that found with the residential school witch hunt. A lot of churches got burned.
We're talking Indigenous residential children. It's a travesty how it was handled. Do your research. Just friggin' get educated, David. What we got here?
We got this one here. RCMP, I don't want to say that word. Long-range pew-pew people with scopes on roof in Scarborough Community Centre for Liberal rally with Mark Carney in attendance. Last I checked, Pierre Poilievre doesn't need rooftop pew-pew guys for protection.
People who have come from all over the world themselves.
Yeah, but one guy's prime minister and the other guy is not. Did you ever think of that, sir? And Pierre Poilievre is not an ex-prime minister trying to get re-elected again either. Did you ever think of that, sir?
For their parents, grandparents, backwards.
Okay. Yeah, Pierre Poilievre can go into the crowds, shake people's hands, talk with everyone. He's got security around, but there's not like 6 guys on the roof waiting to take action. Didn't need these at Pierre rally. Yeah, exactly. Here we got Mark Carney at a rally. We've got Anita.
I only seen 2 guys there. This is really a lot of time wasted just on friggin' misinformation, disinformation, and just personal bias that really should not be out there.
Ferdinand speaking. I don't know if he just zones out and goes to his resting face or if he was conjuring something from the underworld, but take a look at this.
Now, you all as workers represent one of Canada's competitive advantages. That is in the fact that you contribute to a workforce comprised of skilled trades, comprised of people who know how to build an economy. You are...
This is way too long for a stare like that. I'm just waiting for demons to climb up through the gutters and the grates.
Making fun of people just does not make you a better person, sir.
Avery?
2.
Here, where Pierre talks to a 6-year-old girl.
What's your name? Avery. And what brought you here today, Avery?
2.
Oh, that's so cute. That is cute. You got to admit that's cute. But I'm not going to watch this video any longer. We've seen enough of that. Let's move on to the next video. Jasmine Lane. Take it away,
Trump's
Jasmine.
narrative, which looks to be on its last legs. And are you planning to tone down any of that sort of rhetoric?
Well, I have not used rhetoric. I've used facts.
CBC is straight up coming for your kids now. It's almost as though Mark Carney just announced that...
Holy crap. Coming for your kids now.
He was going to increase their funding annually, and they really, really, really want him to win now. I'm honestly quite shocked by their latest story. I'm equally shocked, and I'm not surprised, I suppose, about the latest Liberal attack ad. Wow, is that ever something? I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Be sure to give us a follow.
Now, Jasmine Lane or Ms. Lane, over opinionated? Oh my, are we being set up?
Follow on other social media platforms. Subscribe, like, and comment your thoughts down below. We are going to be myth busting today a very popular rumor floating around about Mr. Mark Carney, one that a lot of people have sent me over the last week or so. And I've gotten to the bottom of all of it. Poilievre also had some pretty incredible moments over the last 24 hours. And clearly, our government under the Liberals has absolutely no idea what they are talking about, proven by this.
In Canada, what we've said is we take stock of what the U.S. has done, and at the same time, we know that the relationship will never be the same again. And that's my message to Europeans. The relationship with the U.S. will never be the same. They want to do things differently. We're the biggest client of the U.S. by far. We buy more from the U.S. than the UK, France, China, and Japan combined. So for anybody that has been in business before, when you treat your client, your best client, the way we've been treated, well, of course, it means that you want fundamentally to change the way you're operating. What we've said is we understand that President Trump is taking decisions for his own administration and his own people, but he also respects strength. And we've made sure that there were counter tariffs on American products back in Canada. We are now at $60 billion worth of counter tariffs. We announced new counter tariffs on auto yesterday because we think that it is ultimately the best way to get to a good deal eventually. We're putting maximum pressure on the Trump administration, and at the same time, we are finding off-ramps. And the only people on earth that will be able to really have President Trump change course are the Americans themselves. And the Americans now understand that tariffs are a tax on them.
That may be one of the first times in history I've ever witnessed somebody fearmonger and then debunk their fearmongering.
Fear-mongering and debunk the fear-mongering? What is wrong with you, woman? That's not true. We've got a problem. And just to roll over and play dead and let this guy Trump do what he's doing without doing anything is a huge mistake.
At the exact same time. Interesting. So a couple things to take apart here. Number one, she says, oh, that our relationship is forever changed because of this. It'll never be the same. And we're telling everybody else the same thing. Well, we all loved people like that in high school, let me tell you.
Who gives two craps about kids in high school or when you're a teenager in high school? This is reality. The world was taken aback by these Trump tariffs. We've been taken aback by these Trump tariffs. We don't want to be the 51st state, and we're not going to be the 51st state. We're a sovereign nation. And we're going to deal with new trading partners like the UK and Europe and manifest new ways of trading. And then when the American political situation becomes more stable, we'll gladly open our door and work with them again. And this is the message I got out of it. And you're making it into a different message altogether. It's not fair, it's disingenuous, and you're misleading the general public and people that should know, and it's going to affect everybody's standard of living.
And then also says that they're announcing counter tariffs to be strong so that we get the best deal. So you are acknowledging that our relationship is probably not forever changed. You're being very dramatic right now, and fair, tariffs are stupid. But you also know that this is actually just a negotiation. You know that this is all going to work.
No, this is not just a negotiation. Only the naive would think it's a negotiation. It's a big mistake to think it's a negotiation. We've got to change, and it's a good change because there's other things we need to change because the macro economics of the fiat economy and the framework has created an unaffordability, a not affordable, which is an affordability issue in Canada, and we need to change it. So this is a good time to be able to straighten this out also. And nobody else is realizing it. It's not a conservative government that's going to fix it. It's not an NDP government that's going to fix it. We can get started in the right direction with a liberal government, and they've got to change the way they're going to do their policies in the near future as well, because there's more change that's needed to benefit Canadians.
Work out in the end, and it will be A-OK. That was weird. Second thing, she says that Americans now know that tariffs are actually just a tax on them, while in the same sentence saying that Canada's retaliating with a $60 billion retaliatory tariff, and we're also adding tariffs to the auto sector. What? So, I don't know, are you evil or are you just really not putting the pieces together there? How on earth can you confidently say in one sentence,
because the counter tariffs are measured in such a way to have cause and effect to influence how Americans think, to change the American situation so that we can have a trading partner that we can get back to that should be fair in all their dealings with Canada. So this evil nonsense and stating evil is just nonsense.
We know that the Americans are hurting because of the tariffs from Donald Trump, and they're not allowed to be the only ones hurting. We want our people to hurt too.
No, you're reading into it the wrong way. And it's really unfortunate the fact that you cannot see it differently, but just, as I said to David, do your research.
So we're announcing counter tariffs. It's just huh?
I would say as well, our economy is stronger than the American economy.
Are you ready? Let's say it together now. Common sense. Which, of course, you're not going to get out of our illegitimate prime minister, Mr. Mark Carney, who has all of his education in economics and philosophy, which is just awesome that he can not only screw up our economy, which is exactly what he has done ever since Justin Trudeau tapped him to be our economic advisor.
There's another false narrative. We had a worldwide pandemic, became public knowledge December 19th, 2019. So trashed every economy around the world. The Americans under Joe Biden actually recovered better than anybody else. This guy Donald Trump was given a great economy to work with. And what's he done? What has he done? You can see for yourself. He's trashed it. Year to date, ever since he got into power, where is it? Took a good economy, a good platform to build upon, because everybody's worried about inflation. But the inflation boondoggle happens whenever you got to bail out people to make sure they've got money to live on, and you've got no gross domestic product. That's where the inflation comes from. And it just doesn't go away. And then you get supply chain issues that have only just recently started getting resolved. Still not perfectly resolved even to this day as at today, April 7, 2025. And then you're going to blame the dollar. Well, guess what? 50 years ago, based on what was going on, it was considered that for Canada to work optimally on the world markets, we needed a dollar around 72 cents. But this is beyond the scope of most people's way of thinking. Just saying, folks. So, Miss Lane, we're going to give you a couple more minutes, and we're going to pull away from you, too.
He will be sure to give you a TED Talk about how what he did was so moral and morally superior to you, and how you should be thanking him for all of his hard work. I'm actually really quite exhausted by all of the Liberal Party and their supporters.
Yeah, but I'm getting exhausted by this friggin' conservative nonsense. And I've got nothing against conservatives, but, man, you're just pushing this narrative between Moose on the Loose and you. I'm not feeling all that comfortable.
Our economy is doing great. If it was, why is this even a big deal to you? Oh, right. Because our economy isn't doing great. Right. Because we are actually the second last in the OECD for growth per capita. Got it.
But also, they may well pivot to the proposition that Pierre Poilievre has put in the window, right? Which is, this isn't just about the next couple of weeks. Now we know that Donald Trump is a threat, not only to Canada, but to the world economically. So we need to be prepared not just to weather the storm of the immediacy of the current tariffs, but think about the long-term economic stability of Canada. And do you want to trust Canada for the next 10 years, people who had the last 10 years, where we had pretty much a completely blown decade, where you had 22% growth in per capita GDP in the United States, and
a blown decade? You mean an economy that was in recession, that was handed over by Stephen Harper and his cabinet minister Pierre Poilievre to Justin Trudeau on November 15th, well, in November 2015. And then December 2019, only 3.5 years later, we have a worldwide pandemic that crashed every economy. So what are you talking about, this lost decade bullshit? This was a worldwide issue that happened, and everybody has been hurt by it. And you tend to spin it in a different way and place the blame on people, without looking at where the issue came from to begin with in its original form.
5% per capita GDP growth in Canada over 10 years. Do you want 10 more years of that, or do you want to go a different way? And I think he's got a pretty aggressive ballot question sort of pushing the window to be not just reacting to Trump, but to be preparing Canada to respond to Trump for the next decade.
But meanwhile, as at today, our balance sheet in Canada is better than the balance sheet in the United States of America, and that is a fact.
But the legacy media and Liberal Party definitely do not want you thinking that far ahead about your future in this election. They need you to stay afraid, which is exactly why it is just so disappointing that they're coming after your kids now. Seriously, watch this. This just aired on CBC this morning.
Okay, so here, after we finish with this segment about coming after the kids, then I'm going to pull away and wind this video up because it's just taking way too long. Just too much nonsense. It's not relevant to the people's needs during this election and the Canadian cycle. It's just mind-boggling, the disinformation that people are being subjected to.
With tariff talk also dominating the headlines, children may have questions and concerns about just what it means for them in their lives. The CBC's Deanna Sumanek-Johnson looks at some ways parents can approach the topic.
That looks like a butterfly.
It's not a question a parent
Body language tells
to get
everything
from their 11-year-old.
When I heard tariffs, I had a feeling that it had to do something with Donald Trump. So I decided to ask Mom because I had a feeling she'd know. Do you work with my school?
She did know. It helps that Harper's mom is also a social studies teacher.
The idea that it is a way to encourage.
Okay, well, there you have it right then and there. Children know. Why on earth would children know? Well, if their teachers are talking about it or if their parents are talking about it, and I don't mean to get too conspiratorial, but it is very well documented who funds teachers and typically where their leaning is when it comes to politics. You know, when I was a kid, can we just get back to these days, by the way? When I was a kid, the only things that my parents talked to me about were things about my life that like really mattered. You know, like if grandma died, that was something we would discuss. My friendships, you know, what toy I wanted to play with, if I wanted to go for a walk after dinner with my mom. That was the kind of conversation. This is just, I don't understand what it is. And we could probably dive into this far deeper. What is with kids these days and having their childhood stripped away from them? Like, just so that they can be worried about adult things that don't concern them, that honestly probably don't even concern their parents, that will probably be dealt with within a matter of time. It's just so disappointing to me. And this is also why I'm a huge proponent for, I absolutely do not like when kids have access to screens at all. I really don't. And maybe here's a little personal story. It really is so unbelievably obvious how different myself and the drama and conflicts and things that were going on in my head were compared to friends of mine who lived in the city, who had cell phones as soon as they came out, who had access to social media accounts when they were incredibly young, and me, because I grew up in the bush, and I remember like my childhood and teenage years, for the most part, up until I was probably about 17, consisted of walking barefoot in the moss in the backyard and feeding the ducks, or playing horseshoes with my stepdad, snowmobiling to my friend's house when I was a teenager, and just doing things that were really wholesome and learning and not being corrupted by the latest celebrity gossip, not being corrupted by somebody saying something mean about me on the internet, at school. Like, that just was not my life at all. And there is a very big difference between my values and morals at the end of the day compared to some of my other friends who did live in those types of environments because they were in the city and they had access to everything, whereas I couldn't get cell phone service where I lived, which is why I didn't have a cell phone for the vast majority of my life. And of course, that's generalizing. There's a million and one other factors, and I'm not at all saying that people who have access to those things, turn out to be bad people. I'm saying that the focus of your life, especially in your youth, and the fact that there's an 11-year-old girl, I heard tariffs, so I thought it was Donald Trump. I can guarantee you your mom has talked about Donald Trump in the kitchen when she's making dinner or something. That's how you heard about that. And it hurts me. It does. It causes me actual sadness to know that children, just given the ecosystem of the world these days, do not have the opportunity to grow up as wholesome as some of us did. And that's really sad to me.
That's a lot of drama, and that's a lot of judgment you're projecting there, Jasmine. You ever thought that maybe through the left and right frontal lobes to the upper cortex, that these young kids pick up on everything that goes on around them, including yourself, everything you watched, you heard, everything your friends told you is being programmed and being brought in through the upper cortex and put into the subconscious of your mind? Do you think that is possible? Gotta love kids.
Kids who are afraid of Trump because of tariffs, which are things that they do not even understand and shouldn't understand because they don't need to yet, because they are innocent children. That's not journalism. That is emotional propaganda.
No, you're casting your judgment on others.
That is dressed up as a news feature. Like, why isn't CBC covering the day-to-day issues of Canadians right now? Why aren't they covering those things that matter so much because of the liberal policies? All of those statistics have been in decline for the last 10 years. Why aren't they covering that? I don't recall them doing a story interviewing children who were hurt because their brother passed away after he got some safe supply. No, they don't do stories like that because that doesn't fit their narrative. And the fact that CBC would also, while publishing this piece, the intent behind there is not to report on the news. It is to make other parents watching think to themselves, oh, goodness, well, you know, what if little Johnny is feeling this way too about Trump? We should really talk to him about these Trump tariffs. It's to impact the actions of private citizens and to shame them and make them feel like they don't belong unless they go to the same lengths that this family did, this family who's getting their 15 seconds of fame over here. It is so disgraceful. It is so dishonest. And I mean, come on, that's ideological conditioning for you right there.
Canadian Conservatives do not believe in giving tax dollars to media outlets. That's Justin Trudeau. That's Justin Trudeau. That's Justin Trudeau. Okay, if you don't want me to answer the question, I'll move on to someone else. You're a tax-funded mouthpiece to the PMO. That's the reality.
Liberal parents, Trump tariffs, Trump orange man bad, scary, must indoctrinate everybody else. Conservative parents, I mean, look at this beautiful interaction at Pierre Poilievre's rally last night.
You like that? Hey, look at this little girl. Who is this little girl? What's your name? What's your name? Avery. And what brought you here today, Avery?
To help the country.
To help the country. And where do you think she heard that from? The kids in the playground at the friggin' kindergarten? No, we just finished going through this whole drama cycle about Jasmine, about an 11-year-old girl. And now we've got this young lady, half the age easily of the 11-year-old, and it's at Pierre Poilievre's rally.
To show you this liberal attack ad that came out.
And so that's okay. So you just spend numerous minutes going, oh, how I was brought up, and these liberals and what they're doing is so bad, and this 11-year-old child, and the kids are not being kids, and yet Pierre Poilievre brings another child that's half that age up to the platform to discuss a matter that is of national interest. Like, come on. Do you not see the friggin' hypocrisy here? Like, we all want what's best for the country. Let's be honest. And people need to make an informed decision about what is best. And just do your research. I'm not here to tell you to vote Liberal, Conservative, or NDP. I'm just pointing out different perspectives that you should take into consideration. If you have not, you have to make your own decisions one way or another. But I'm going to cut this one out because this is way too long. And it's just the way it is. I wish I could spend more time just focusing on relevant issues, but I just find there's just too much noise and garbage being pushed out to the people that you need to become aware of. So, without further ado, when anxiety has peaked, you feel like you're spiraling downward, just stop. Take a few deep breaths, let go of your thoughts, sleep on it, and the next day you'll look at it from a different perspective. So love and peace to everybody. Thank you very much for watching. And when everything gets out of control, do what my buddies here do. Ciao for now. Thanks for watching.